We talk so much. So it's so good to see faces. You too, Ethan, just to see
It definitely is.
you're
Well,
like a real person.
well, thank you, Kelly and Ivana, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we're so thankful that you're here to join us. We're just chatting about the book, and it just sounds like it's just like universally beloved. You have just captured these characters that resonate with people in such different ways. And even if people are at different points in their grief journey, or years, months out from a loss, that you just really captivated everybody, and there's something here for everybody. So well done. We loved it.
Well, thank you all. I mean, that just means so much because I mean, to put a book out there, I mean, I have to get attached to those characters in the same kind of way. So I mean, I care so much about the readers receiving them well, and the reception has just been really, really great and just really uplifting because it can be hard. It can be a roller coaster, the whole writing life.
Yes, well, your book's out in the world now, and it's just been so fun. I read it before it came out, and I think Ivana, oh, maybe you did too. Just to see like the excitement and like knowing that it's going to be something really special, and then seeing the book get into the hands of more readers and them discovering that too. I felt that way as just an early reader, so I can imagine, just a small part of what you have been feeling watching your words come to life.
It's so nice, and I really do credit, I mean, I think especially the Instagram community, the Goodreads community as well, but I just think the Instagram community, I think writers are so lucky to have that now. I say that over and over, and people are probably sick of me saying it, but I can't imagine publishing 50 years ago and just the quiet life it must have been. Just the absolute silence that you put your book out there and maybe you saw one or two reviews, maybe you got a letter here or there, but you really just didn't know, and you're just hoping for the best and just keep on writing, I guess.
Yeah, that's so true. And I know like we've all appreciated your interaction with our reviews and sharing and just engaging with our thoughts too. And that's so special as a reader too, just to have direct access to you and your thoughts and encouragement. So thank you for taking time to do that.
No, people always ask me about the social media time, and I think that's like the gravy of my day. I mean, why not spend some time responding to lovely things people are saying? So it's like my de-stressor in a way at the end of the day or in the middle of the day to see those things. I mean, I don't know how you can not respond. I mean, I think it's a lot more difficult when you have, if you're Colleen Hoover or something, you can't keep up with the never stopping landslide of comments, but for me it's manageable, and it's just nice.
But just so you know too, I think the readers, when they hear back from you, I think I could speak for everybody, we just get so giddy, and so it's just like this feeling of like amazement that we were able to get in touch and hear from you, or you repost something or you like something. It's just really, the interaction has just been special for everybody.
Oh, thanks. Well, and again, it's special for me too. So I mean, it's what I always dreamed of for so many years writing, and I mean, to have that community is just really, I think it goes both ways.
And there's not been literally like one negative review of your book that we can like I mean, books are all over the place, and there's some like, well, I didn't like that part, but we liked that part, and seriously, honestly, I just can't believe it's just loved everywhere. It's just amazing.
It really is. It's really nice to see. And I mean, I love something that's feel good, and that's important to me too. So yeah, that's really nice to see. And you never know what people will have a problem with, or what they'll not have a problem with, what they'll like, what they'll hate. So it really is a crapshoot every time, I think.
Nope, no problems here.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous though for like future works. I don't want this to be my high and then it can only go down.
Yeah, well, it's true. Like this second book, there was certainly no sophomore slump. So that's you're over the hump there.
Well, that's nice to see.
Well, just to start us off, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your background and how you came to write these really beloved books. And I saw that you are or were an English and psychology professor. So can you talk a little bit about that background and, you know, your path to being published?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just I think when you look at, I know for some of my friends, I'm in a debut group with everybody that just came out in the last year or so, and you see all different paths. I mean, you see people in their 60s or 70s and people that are in like their young 20s or something. And so there's all different walks of life, and it happens so differently for everyone. But for me, being a writer, it was a lot of failing and a lot of just kind of getting so close and then being knocked down to the bottom again. But I wanted to write since I was, I think, 7 or 8. Like I used to write poetry in first and second grade, and my teacher would let me hand it out to the class. We had a family relative she was a teacher, so she would take my poems and photocopy them and make me a big stack of them. So I think that was my first publishing experience. But I just always loved the sound of books and the sound of words. And then you think, like, I remember taking a fiction writing course in college and being 18 or 19 and thinking, by the time I graduate college, I'm going to have a novel done and I'm going to be published, and that's my trajectory. And then it doesn't happen. And then you just keep reading and you just kind of keep your nose to the grindstone. I think it's like acting in a way that you can get so close, but you just have to keep on persevering and you have to keep on going with the day job as well. So yeah, I was out of college. I was a high school English teacher, and then I got a job right away teaching English as a second language at college. I finished up a couple master's degrees and then a PhD, had kids. So a lot of things will distract you from your writing as well, but it was just like this small little fire that was always inside me. I probably wrote 3 or 4 different novels that never saw the light of day, that just kind of went under the bed somewhere. But I think it's kind of, sometimes it happens on the first try, and sometimes that's your fertilizer. That's the audition and your apprenticeship. So the way it happened then with A Little Hope, I finally felt like I had written something that was like worth something, that I knew like the readers would connect to it in a certain way. And I didn't want to give up on that. I was used to kind of just having a novel, submitting for a while, and then giving up and starting something new. But something just kept telling me, don't give up on that one. And I mean, I got a lot of rejections on that one, but when my agent, when she wanted to take me on, it was like, it was worth all the years of, of that going and the trial and error. Yeah, it was really, really great.
I love that. I love to hear that. And then Read with Jenna had A Little Hope as like her bonus pick, right? Can you talk a
Completely
little bit
surreal.
about that, and then like how that came about, and then your experience with Book of the Month, because both books, correct, have been Book of the Month add-ons? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely surreal. And you go into the publishing process, nobody gives you like a boot camp or training. Like you really have no idea what to expect, and you're just kind of keeping up with, it's like I Love Lucy on the with the chocolates on the on the conveyor belt. You're just trying to keep up with it, and whatever they ask you, you do. But you really don't know, you don't have a mental, because I never had any friends that were writers. I never had people in my town when I was young growing up that were writers, so I really didn't know a lot of what to expect. So I think they told me in April about Jenna, maybe. So it came out in November and they told me in April, I think, but I couldn't tell anybody. I could not, I mean, my agent knew, my wife and my kids knew, and nobody else. And that's really hard to sit on something like that for a long time. And then Book of the Month, maybe later, maybe like August or September or something. I didn't really know what Book of the Month was at that point. I I wasn't a member, and I remembered an older Book of the Month. I didn't know it was the same one that was still around. So yeah, and I think that was like supply chain stuff though, because my book was supposed to come out November 2nd, but it ended up being delayed until November 16th. A Little Hope. But the Book of the Month still came out in like November 1st. So that was a nice kind of dress rehearsal for that. And I was really hoping they would take it again for A Quiet Life, because I love the Book of the Month community, and I love the edition and the box and everything. And yeah, that was a really nice surprise that they took it as A Quiet Life as an add-on. But the
Yeah.
Read with Jenna thing was absolutely surreal. I mean, I was teaching that day and I put on the TV and Jenna and Hoda were there holding my book, and my students were, because I never really talked about my writing to my students, and they were just like, what? My wife had one of her students emailed her and said that she was getting a root canal at the dentist, and she said, I think your husband's book is on TV that I'm watching. So it was just completely real moment. It was in People magazine too. That was huge to my family, bigger than like the New York Times. And People magazine was just really, really big to my family and people in my town.
That's so exciting. I love just to see the buzz and the excitement around your book. I'm sure that was just thrilling.
Yeah, it's completely surreal. Because like I said, you do it in silence for so many years. It's like the poem that Kirsten finds of her dad's, that you live so much of your life without telling anyone. And that's what writing really is. I mean, you're just doing it in silence, and you just keep, I mean, that's the bad thing about it. Nobody cares if you do it or not. And nobody, it doesn't matter. Like, you can write 5 pages or 20 pages or nothing, but you have to have that kind of light within yourself to keep going at it, I guess.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was really surreal to have it be in the public world then.
Mhm. Definitely. Well, can you talk a little bit about your writing process as far as like what writing looked like for you, kind of as far as like being a pantser or a plotter, do you plot things out ahead of time? Do you fly by the seat of your pants? And what did that look like with this book?
Definitely always a pantser. I'm a big believer in being a pantser. I know people though that swear by outlines and they map it all out. And once in a while, I do try to think, all right, what still needs to happen? What is your goal for this? But I am a big believer in character. It all about being all about characters, and the characters have to surprise you. So there's moments in probably all the works I've written where the characters have told me, no, I don't want to do that. This is what's happening. And yeah, I'm a big believer in writing toward that moment when the character surprises you, because I think that's when they become real. That's when they become these 3-dimensional people, and they're not stock characters anymore. They're not like something we've seen on a soap opera or a Hallmark movie. They've kind of become these real, living, breathing people. And so that's what I'm always hoping toward. But I think about who they are. Usually before I start writing, they're kind of in my head for a long time, and I'm thinking about what their house looks like and what they care about. I'm thinking about giving them problems, because you need problems to make the world go round for them. But like A Quiet Life, I got the inspiration for it, and I don't think I started writing the book for about 6 or 7 months after that.
Yeah, I was gonna pop it over actually to Lyndon, because Lyndon's question had a lot to do with what you're talking about, with your characters.
Sure.
Hi, Ethan. Thanks so much for joining us. And
Hey, Lyndon, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I'm joining you from Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada. And
Oh, very nice.
yes. So I really enjoyed your book. I just wanted to ask a little bit about your writing process. I was just curious as I was reading it, because there were so many like little threads that connected all of the characters. And I was wondering, what was your approach to writing that? Like, did you start with one storyline and then add on another, or did you just like go in and just like do it all at once? I was just really curious about what that process looked like for you, because it seemed pretty seamless from my perspective, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, it almost reminds me. And Lyndon, my dream is to get to Canada one day. I think I've been to Vancouver, but that's the only part of Canada I've been to.
Well, then you need to check out the other coast, because it's the best coast.
I definitely would love to. And Canadian readers are so great. I've heard there's one bookstore, I think, in Ontario, and they've been so nice about both books. But in any case, to answer your question, yeah, it's like that quote, how does it go? Easy reading is damn hard writing. And I think that's your goal, is for it to look kind of seamless and to look easy. But that never comes the way on the first draft. And it's, I think George Saunders says his discontentment with his writing is what makes it better, that he keeps going back to it and fixing it and being discontent with it. And then finally you say, oh, this might work a little bit. But yeah, so my goal is to get the first ideas down, but then that's where the revision that you have to go back and really like think about, all right, but what else is happening? Who else are they? What are some other connections? Like, even the stuff about Kat being Kirsten's teacher, that didn't come until a later revision, which I think it made things all glide together a lot more. But you keep hoping for those aha moments where it clicks into place a little bit more. But this book was, A Little Hope came together a lot more easily for whatever reason. Maybe it was because of the different characters and you could leave some kind of gaps in there. But this book needed a lot of rewriting and revision at the end. And I had to scrap like the last 100 pages or so and rewrite it from, I almost wanted to give up because it was just so much kind of blood, sweat, and tears. But I'm so happy I didn't. I just kind of took it day by day. And it was during COVID when I was online with my teaching. So I just would, every day I would sit at the dining room table because it was different from my usual writing place, and just kind of go little by little and fix it up. So yeah, all those little connections, I think some of them are there in the initial draft, but like even this book was firstly just about Chuck. And then I realized, I thought Chuck as a character was just, the reader would just get too mired down, and they needed some other distractions, and they needed some other perspective of what the town was like and what was going on. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Sure.
To that point, I always love hearing about like what things were majorly changed, or like what plot points maybe you really wanted in but had to be edited out. Is there anything else you can share about how your writing process evolved and like what specific things had been altered? We've all read the book and loved it, so spoilers.
Okay, good. So
welcome.
I was just going to ask, so spoilers are okay. Yeah, so there was, I think with it being your second book, you just are so nervous, and A Little Hope hadn't come out yet when I was revising this and finishing it up. And so I really had no idea what the world was going to be like with publishing, which is good and bad, I guess. But you do have that kind of doubt in yourself. All right, I wrote one book. Can I do this again? Can I make this happen again? So A Quiet Life, the first version was so different. Like there was an ending scene where they all got together for a picnic at Ella's house at the end. And it was just, it felt, and everybody came to the picnic. Like Natasha came to the picnic and Chuck's kids came to the picnic. And it was nice. I mean, it was a nice idea of everybody coming together, but it was just ridiculous. And it felt like lazy writing. Like I was just kind of throwing it all together at the end. So yeah, that, and Kirsten ended up with a different guy in the previous version. So there was a lot of reworking those kinds of things. But first it was just Chuck's book, then it was just Chuck and Ella. And then once Chuck went to Rescue Ranch to look for a dog and saw the pig, then Kirsten kind of showed up there and became an interesting character. So it really did evolve in this odd kind of inorganic way.
I love that. And Shayna says, I wonder what characters surprised you the most writing the book, or changed from what you thought they would be or do?
Interesting. That's a really good question. Definitely Sal surprised me a lot, because I didn't mean for him to be as, I don't know, a lot of people really like Sal, and he came out to be much more, and that's what happens sometimes with secondary characters. You don't think too much about them, but they gallop onto the page, and Sal kind of had that, almost the comic relief part, but almost like this tenderness and this gruffness to the book, which I think Chuck kind of needed. Sal was kind of the voice of the reader. Yeah, I saw somebody said Sal grew on me. Yeah, I think, and growing up in that area of Pennsylvania, there's a lot of old men like that. And Sal was kind of indicative of all like my grandfather's friends and people like that. He's like, that's what my editor said when she first looked at it. She said, I love the dear grumpy old men in this book. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of who else surprised me. Natasha took me a while to get into, because at first I had her being a lot angrier toward Chuck, and then I realized, no, she wouldn't be angry. She would be it would perplex her, the whole situation, but I had to rewrite some of that. Grayson ended up being a lot more interesting than he initially was, and he's just a fun character, and just like a guy you'd want to hang out with. And just him showing up at the bar when Kirsten was there, I didn't know that was going to happen, and then all of a sudden I thought, who else could be there? And he kind of stole the scene right there.
It's so fun to hear how those characters have evolved in your mind.
Yeah, they definitely do. But it really was, there became a big question about, and my wife said it, and then my editor said it, about Kirsten leaving for the road trip with Sal and Chuck. And they both thought, I don't know if I would do that if I only vaguely knew these men. So then, because Kirsten didn't really know Chuck only from showing up at the rescue ranch at that point. So then that's why I brought in the old connections of Kat being her teacher and the Cardinal stuff. And then it just it all clicked into place that way. And sometimes there's struggles like that, and it just feels so good when you can work them out.
You sure did.
Yeah,
Well,
you did.
Cindy has a question about your writing about grief. Cindy, would you like to ask Ethan?
Absolutely. Hi, Ethan.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. So I was curious why you decided to write about grief. And then on top of that, how you were able to channel it so well through the characters. I've dealt with grief a lot the last couple of years, and I recognized so many different things. So I was curious.
I'm not sure I mean, The Little Hope dealt with a lot of grief as well. I think grief is, I feel things deeply, and I like works that express that look into things deeply like that really mine our human emotion. And I think a lot of our complicated emotions are about grief, about whether it's experiencing actual death or the fear of death, or just loss in many different ways, not actually losing someone, just the imagined fear of all those things. So I think that's when we are laid most bare, when we are going through grief. And that's when we realize a lot of things, what they mean. My mother-in-law, who I was really close to, and of course my wife is really close to her mom, we lost her to leukemia a couple of years ago. And that, I think, just changed how I view the world. And I mean, I remember thinking, we were saying, I don't mean to bring everybody down, but I remember feeling like just such that loss and such that emptiness. And I thought, on the flip side of this, wow, that really means you did something right. If people are missing, if you leave such a hole when you die, if people are missing you this much, that means you did something right. And I mean, we all should want that. So yeah, I think we are laid most bare. I think we learn a lot about ourselves when we experience loss like that. And I think as a writer, that just naturally gravitate toward things like that, trying to understand that, trying to show readers different approaches to things.
Well, and how different it can be at different times even.
It is, and you miss people. You don't just lose them all at once. You lose them in just a lot of different ways. I remember we used to always, because we have a house in Pennsylvania, and but we're mostly in Delaware. And I remember when we drive back and forth, my wife would always call her mom and tell her she got there. And I remember the first time driving to Delaware and thinking, oh, you should call your mom, and just feeling like that tidal wave again. But yeah, I think that you just have to face things in a lot of different ways, and you go through at least a year where there's all those first things without the person, and that's definitely what Chuck was feeling. And yeah.
Good. Well, great job.
Thanks for asking.
Before you hopped on here, sorry, Kelly, Ethan, somebody was saying how you wrote Ella's part so powerfully and eloquently. And I mean, no offense, we know you're a father, but I mean, from like a mother's point of view, how did you capture that rawness of the loss of her daughter? And I mean, we were all really impressed by that. If you're a mother, you kind of feel it.
Well, thanks. That really means a lot, because you always want your writing to feel authentic. You want somebody to say, yeah, that tracks with how I would do something or how I would feel. I don't know what that is, but I read an interview recently with Elizabeth Strout. I mean, everybody knows wonderful Elizabeth Strout as a writer. And she said even when she was really young, she could be next to somebody on a subway and she could kind of channel into what they were thinking and how they feel. And I think when I'm writing, not with every character, if I can't feel it for a character, I have to go in another direction and try somebody else. But I think with certain characters, I feel I know them inside and out, and whether they're male, female, young, old, it really doesn't matter in a case like that. And I care about what they care about. I feel what they're feeling. And yeah, I don't know. It's a weird power or something. But yeah, I just could feel exactly what Ella was going through and how she's also grieving like the loss of her marriage, but then she's also that state of just not knowing. And I just put myself in that position. I think that's another thing, that no matter what my characters are, I can see myself in them in certain ways, and just the uncertainty of getting through that long, cold winter and wondering where your child is and what's become of her, and just kind of having to answer your phone. I mean, we hate answering our phones, just having to answer your phone on every ring and wonder who it's going to be, if there's going to be any news. But thanks for thinking it was believable.
Well, thank you for reuniting them, because we were saying we would have really fallen out of our chairs if they did not.
Yeah, there's certain lines I wouldn't cross. I would not hurt an animal, and I would not hurt a child in a book. If there's certain lines I don't think I could bring. I mean, who knows down the road, but now there's certain lines I can't cross.
Yeah, Beverly said that moment when she got the call from her daughter was so thrilling.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a hard scene to do, but even when I read it now, I still get kind of like the chills from it. I'm like, all right, what's she gonna do? Is she gonna and I try to think, because I don't think quickly like that, and that's why I'm a writer, because I have time to go back and think things out. But you want to be in, and Ella is so smart in that position, like trying to get her to talk about what's outside, and I wouldn't have thought of any of that. But yeah, that was a hard scene to write.
It did remind me to teach my children my phone number more. I think I talked with one of you here about that, how you teach your child your phone number, and mine are 4 and 8, and I need to get better about having them memorize it, because yeah.
Well, and that's definitely there's some of my real life in there, because my older daughter was on a field trip, and she did have one of the mothers call us the way Riley had called Ella in the past. That I think they were at an aquarium too. So that was taken from real life, and I was so surprised that my daughter remembered our phone number, and it was just such a neat thing.
Right.
Yes, I know that gave me hope when I was reading, for Ella, because I'm like, I know Ethan is a girl dad, and I think this is gonna turn out okay.
Yeah, that was as much as I didn't know about endings and what I was working toward. That was definitely something I was working toward. But everything does have to feel organic, and it has to feel earned, and yeah, it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah, Debbie said the audiobook narration of that phone call was so good. Loved the different narrators for each character.
Oh, nice. I've heard some of it, and we got to actually not choose them, but they give you a lot of people to choose from, and they actually picked my first choices for each one. And I was so happy to have the 3 different narrators. I thought that was neat, but I have to listen to that part. I've only listened to maybe the first 3. I think I've listened to one narrator each, but not that part. Now I want to listen to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and oh yeah, Rebecca, and also the scene where the mother-in-law finally came to her senses. I felt so relieved for that.
That was another thing. That was another revision in the final draft, because at one point, one version, Cindy, the mother-in-law, was in on it with Kyle, and my editor did not like that. She said, "No, I think let's make the mother-in-law nice," and it works so much better. It's kind of a trope or a cliche to have the mean mother-in-law, so it was nicer to have them kind of come together that way.
Yeah, Jen said I was worried she was going to be in on it.
Yeah, no.
All right, Laura Beth has a question for you. Go ahead, Laura Beth.
Hi, thanks for being here. I love when authors write in books or music into the storyline, and I'm always curious if you have a personal connection, because And this one, you referenced Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, and then a favorite, Van Morrison, for some of the music. So I'm just wondering if you have a personal connection to that and why you specifically chose those works of art.
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, no, I think so we have a neighbor that lives behind us and he doesn't do it anymore, but for a long time he used to play music in his backyard at night, and he'd play all kinds of cool, like those types of like Van Morrison music, and I don't know, maybe like Leonard Cohen or Joni Mitchell, or just really neat things. So that's what I wanted to have David play that type of music, and that it was going up to Ella and she was hearing some of that. But I wanted, I don't know how I thought of that one, the Everyone song. I mean, I love it in Royal Tenenbaums when they play it then. They play it, I think, at the final scene of Royal Tenenbaums. But I wanted something to feel triumphant and something to inspire Ella at that point where she was feeling so low, and just kind of to give her some optimism that would happen. But yeah, I do usually have a personal connection to some of the things. And I used to teach a class on Sylvia Plath, and that was my senior seminar at Muhlenberg College when I was an undergrad. It was on Sylvia Plath, and we read The Bell Jar. So yeah, so there usually is some type of little wink and a nod to something like that when I put it in. It's usually songs I like. I think, are they dancing? She and David are dancing to a Journey song, I think.
Yes, they are.
Faithfully, yeah, and I love that song too. Yeah, so it's usually it's all me.
Well, thanks for sharing pieces of you in the book. We loved it.
Sure. Thanks so much for reading.
Thank you. And then Carmela had a question about Natasha.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Ethan. I'm also calling in from Canada, a
Hi,
cold part
Carmela.
of Canada. Hi. So when I was reading your book, and I love books that make me think after I've shut the book, but at first I was wondering, why is Natasha so prevalent in this book? Like there were parts that I'm going like, I'm tired of Natasha already. Why is he thinking about her so much? And then I thought about it more around change in our lives, like the significant changes that we have in our lives, and how we sometimes think back to choices we've made in the past, and how regret comes up a lot. So I think about that, and I'm thinking, you know what? I think I do that. Like, I know I do that. Like, whenever a big change has happened, I'm thinking, God, I could have handled that better. And I wish there would have been an opportunity for a redo. So that's what, afterwards I thought, oh, that made so much sense why that was such a big part of why in the book. But at first I wasn't sure. And then when I really reflected upon it, I thought, yeah, I think that's what, I don't know. Is that what you were thinking?
Absolutely. Thank you for thinking all that out. But yeah, I think that's what happens when you lose somebody, when you experience a death like that. The dialogue is gone between you, so you're left to just kind of pick up those pieces by yourself. And he is hyper focusing on Natasha, because that was just kind of one page in their history, and they had this really nice, rich history and a great relationship, and they did a lot. But he didn't like that was kind of a big thing that was left unsaid between them. And I think he's alone with his thoughts too much. I mean, he really is just kind of dithering around the house all day, focusing on things and just kind of being up in his head. And that's why I didn't make the whole book about Chuck, because that's just him up in his thoughts all the time. But I think he does feel a lot of regret. I mean, he says, I think it's in the first chapter where he talks about he regrets not building a treehouse for his kids, and he regrets that Ella delivering his papers waved to him and he didn't wave back in time. And I think he's just kind of feeling sorry for himself at this point, and he's just kind of stuck with all that regret. And he doesn't like that it was an angry moment between them, and that they had like these harsh words.
And he doesn't have the opportunity to resolve it.
No,
necessarily with her in the room.
Yeah, no. And once it was good, they just didn't want to touch that anymore. They didn't want to pick the scab. So I think that just becomes this bigger issue that really wasn't, I don't think it was that big of an issue with Kat. I think Kat had just kind of come to terms with it. And it was okay. But yeah, he just regrets a lot of it then.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
No, thanks for plotting it all out so logically.
Change is a big thing that I actually used to be a change practitioner. So I was thinking about it from a change perspective around transitions and things that people go through. But I do like what your thought process around we overthink things, and when we're lonely and on our own, and grieving, I could absolutely see why that happened for him and
We
how you played that
absolutely do.
out. I totally understand it.
Yeah, and there's not many distractions within his day either. I mean, there's if he had
Yeah,
to go to a 9 to 5 job or something, it might kind of
right,
erase some of that. But he's
right.
making it worse by just kind of picking at the wound all day.
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
Also, if you're mentioning Chuck, you kept his children sort of at a distance. I know that his daughter showed up a little bit, and was there a reason that you didn't, have them have a full reunion towards the end, or, I'm sure
Yeah,
they also came to visit him, but they didn't make some big grand entrance at the end.
no, they didn't. And I mean, you can only do so much in a novel. It's only kind of a certain slice of a certain moment. But I think I did want to make a commentary that sometimes those that are closest to you are too close, and it's hard to reach out to them for help. It's hard. I mean, we go through a lot by ourselves, no matter how close we are to our kids or our parents or anything else. And I think it's just something that he doesn't feel like he can talk to his kids about Kat. And I don't think he wants to tarnish that kind of the way they viewed their relationship as well, and that's why he doesn't talk to Sal and Marguerite about it as well. But yeah, I think there is a little bit of a commentary there that sometimes we have amazing relationships with our siblings, our parents, our kids, but sometimes we're kind of off in our little separate orbits there. And I like the idea of found family too, and that comes up a lot in my books, just kind of these unexpected relationships and these unexpected connections there. And I like that feels like he could talk to Kirsten, some of the other characters like that.
Yeah, the found family trope is always just so heartwarming to me. I love that. And it just, you can't help but just, I don't know, just be so captured by those relationships. And we were talking about in our book club discussion, just how we loved how everything came together, and these people living these solitary lives just really converge. And that we just thought that was so beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Let's see. Oh yeah. Brittany says one of my favorite tropes is found family. And
Yeah,
then,
mine too. I mean, I even love that the story on social media, that woman that accidentally invited that guy to her Thanksgiving dinner, and they still get together every year. I mean, they're not family, but they have this great tradition. I love things like that. So yeah, it works its way into my work, into my writing a lot.
It's so realistic that that's how you tied those things up, because it's not the same for everybody, and Mary Ellen mentioned too, like Chuck's relationship with his children rang true for me. I think people can relate to almost so many aspects there.
He does, and I think what happens, especially with your children, when you're in a relationship like that, I think Kat had a certain role with them, and he had a certain role with them, and he doesn't really know yet how to fulfill Kat's role and how to figure out what she would have done differently. And he's just trying to. He was pretty established as that one half of a partnership, and now he's just kind of learning how to make do with missing such a big part of himself.
so Claire had a question. I don't think she's on right now, but she messaged me. Oh, she is. Oh, good, Claire. Okay, go for it.
Hi, Claire.
Hi guys, how are you? Sorry, I've been in and out. So my question was, so I've read both of your books now, love them
Thank
both.
you.
But I've noticed that you wrote, like, all of your characters in both books were super likable or lovable. And I'm just wondering if that is intentional. Often, we need a villain in some books, for the drama, the theatrical aspect of it. But sorry, I'm at school right now, so it's really loud.
No big deal.
But I'm just wondering if you wrote your characters very likable and lovable intentionally.
I don't think intentionally, but I think in order for me to follow them through the book, I need to care about them. But I think there's degrees to which I like or love them. There are a couple characters in A Little Hope that I didn't care as much about as I cared about some of the other ones, but I think a lot of people do become more likable when you look at them from many different angles, and when you understand kind of their what they're going through or what they've had to consider. So maybe that's what I'm doing. I'm always trying to show that we all have these we are all so complicated and we're not just kind of summed up in one sentence. And maybe people become a little bit more likable that way when you know the broader extent to them. If that makes any sense.
It does. I just love that like there was something about each character that was compelling and in the best way possible. It was just
Yeah.
it was fun to read, the stories in both books.
Thanks. That really means a lot. And I think my characters are noble, and I think that happens a lot, that they're noble people who would do the right thing. And they're always flawed in some ways too, but I do try to have noble people, and I think that's just the type of people I care about or respect. Kind of these better versions of ourselves, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's true. I love how your characters are so fully fleshed out, and I think it's easy to muster up empathy for them and for what they're going through. And like you were saying, like, isn't that the truth with people in general? Even if somebody comes across initially as like callous or, hard, not as warm, or once you get to know them and the different facets of their life, then it's easy to show empathy and more fondness towards them. And I think you do a great job of that with your characters, of just giving the full picture.
Oh, thanks. That means a lot. And that was like in A Little Hope, there's a character, Hannah. I don't know if anyone has read that. And she has this kind of, I did not like her initially when she was kind of on the periphery, but once I did her chapter and I got to kind of the heart of who she was and how she felt not good enough and how she felt meager, I think that's something we can all relate to in a lot of different ways. And that made me see her better, and that made me like her more. And I think that is what happens, like you said, that we are. So sometimes people aren't showing you the best of themselves, but there's reason for that. And they've been burned in some way or another. Just have to get to the core of it sometimes.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, Laura Beth, do you have another question? You go for it if you're free.
Oh, sure. Thanks for letting me ask again.
Of course.
We were talking before you got on about your symbolism and how much we loved it. The cardinal, it's so beautiful. But what I took away even more so was the foreshadowing, because so much of Kirsten's journey was trying to find a sign that her dad was going to give her. And this quote where she says, I'm going to read it because she wants more happiness, like a Sunday lying in a hammock with someone she loves, or a Friday night out sipping a cold beer. She wants luck. She wants a sign from her dad, a big, huge sign that shows her the way. And so you kind of had me, we were discussing this. Is it David or is it Grayson? Because you threw down little bird seeds all along. And I thought, oh, it's David, because they have that ski dance scene.
Yeah.
And she mentions getting her a beer. She mentions how lucky she is to be dancing with him, to be with him. And I thought, oh, it's David. And then you switch it, because then Grayson gets her a beer in the next date scene, and how lucky she is there. And it was, I thought that was marvelous. And I really appreciated the use of both of those. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about how you think that up, how you implement it, and obviously very successfully.
Well, I think that comes from writing a lot of poetry, that you kind of, you look at the world through like objects and images and details like that. So I'm always fascinated with details. I'm always looking at people's, like if we're walking by a house and someone's garage is open, I'm looking to see if their garage is organized or if it's chaos or whatever. I'm just interested in the way people do things and the way they think. And I'm interested in the way people eat and what people will order at a restaurant, all things like that. And I think that comes through in the characters. But yeah, I think I wanted to have that. I had never written a love triangle before, and I enjoyed it from Lily King's Writers and Lovers, that the main character has, I think, these two love interests in there. So I really wanted to have that in a book. And I didn't know throughout, like I said, in the first version, she does end up with David, and in the second version, she ends up with Grayson. So yeah, I wanted to make them equally appealing to the reader in a lot of ways, so that she could end up with either one, or decide not to end up with either of them. So I'm trying to think of, yeah, and something with the cardinal, you don't want to hit the reader over the head with it. You want to have some mentions of it, but it would have been weird if like a cardinal showed up at the gas station. But that did kind of climax right at that moment, that she felt like, what are the odds of these two guys being at this gas station needing help from somebody? And she just kind of saw her moment there, and she felt like that was what her dad had sent to her.
Oh yeah, I loved it because I mean the sign wasn't between the two guys necessarily, although maybe those were signs. And I do appreciate, unlike lovers and writers, they both were noble characters, and I think most of us said either one of them would have been a good fit, or neither one of them, right? So I really did appreciate all of that, and that I'm glad that she figured out a way that she could get in that car with Sal and Chuck, because it made it so much better.
Yeah, I think it was better for everybody involved. Maybe not for Kirsten, but I think it was a really good thing. I think she just added so much to that trip. So I really had to brainstorm, because if like my wife and my editor were saying that wasn't believable, I thought, well, Kirsten has to get that. She has to be part of that trip. So I have to figure out a way to get her there. So yeah, it took mining that relationship a bit more and adding some more history between them, that they knew her better that way.
Well, excellent pantsing.
Yeah, a lot of pantsing there. Thank you.
Yeah, Beverly mentioned, oh, go ahead, Ivana.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Beverly's, and then Melody had a question too.
Go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying about Beverly? I missed it.
Oh, she just said, interesting that she made the decision when she was in David's apartment and realized that Grayson's felt more like home.
I agree, Beverly, for sure. But it was like, ironically, did you place them ironically like that?
Good. That's a great observation there, because that is a moment where Kirsten becomes pretty sure that it's not David. There's something about when she's, maybe it's because he's getting close with his wife again, or something clicks off for her at that moment, that she just doesn't feel like this is her journey to be with him, and she doesn't feel at home in the way. And she realizes that David has this whole other life, that it's just his is much more complicated than her life is, and they're just at different points in their life, I think.
Did you say Melody had a question?
Yeah, Melody.
Yeah.
There she is.
Thanks. First of all, Ethan, I'm so impressed with you as a human. Like, you're so likable. I think you've commented and liked on my Instagram review, and also on Goodreads, and you're just very easy to listen to and talk to. Anyway,
well, thank you.
Moving on.
That means a lot.
So the book, the cover, we haven't talked about the cover. I'm curious to know how this came about. I live in Utah, and so I was trying to grab a picture with my snow-covered tree with the candle. It was like the perfect book to read over Christmas. Wondering how this came about.
Yeah, so the cover designers at Scribner are absolutely just the best of the best. And the woman, Elizabeth Yaffe, who designed A Little Hope cover, did A Quiet Life as well. And you could see kind of the similar styles. I mean, like the font, I think is very similar. But she is so good at taking a little detail and kind of fixing it all together, like putting a lot of different ideas together just in one simple cover. Like A Little Hope has the autumn leaves that happen at the beginning of the story, but then the kite that happens at the end of the story, and it's all kind of together there. And A Quiet Life, I don't know quite, I mean, because they ask you for your idea of the cover, they ask you for some ideas you might have, but I think in such literal sense, and she thinks it like an artist, and I mean, just does such a better job. So, I mean, sometimes I imagine it's Chuck's window, but then I also think it might be the cabin that Grayson sketched, because there's candles in the window at that cabin. I think it just borrows from all of that together, and definitely the cardinal there. I'm looking down at it right now to try to answer this. But I love winter. I'm such a big fan of winter too. So it was just like a life's goal to have this neat wintry book cover. But yeah, Elizabeth Yaffe, all credit to her. I try to, whenever anybody on Instagram compliments the cover, I always try to tag her in it, because I think what unsung heroes the cover designers are, who probably don't get noticed enough.
Yeah, like just even like the flame, I just think of like even how that applies to your characters, like this flame of fire or life, and just that the flame reflects in what must be a metallic window, just
Yeah,
the little minutiae,
details,
the
right?
minute details. So
Yeah. Well, and it's
beautiful.
amazing. What I never understood about the publishing process is how many people have read the whole book. Like I thought it was you and your editor, and they put it in the book machine, and it spits out copies of your book, and that's how it goes. I didn't know like all the salespeople read the books, all the marketing people read the book. And these people are reading like 10 books a week. I mean, I can barely read a book a month sometimes. So that's what's so amazing is that all these people, and like even they'll bring an early draft of the cover, and they'll all look at it and they'll say, I think the white could be brightened, or I think this part could be like maybe that candle reflection was added in a little later, because I don't think that was in there in the first draft of it. So it's really amazing what a lot of skilled people come together and help make your book the best it can be.
That's
Thank you.
And
great.
then Rebecca, Porter's Mom and More. Do you have a question too?
Hello.
Hi, Rebecca. I've seen you on Instagram, I think, right?
Yes. And like everybody else has said, thank you for all the Goodreads comments. And yeah, you're just so easy to reach out to.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So I have kind of an off the cuff question. And again, this could be my age, but when I was reading, I kept picturing like Jack Lemmon as Chuck. And I was wondering in your process, so like all of your books are such a feel good, as everybody has said, and love stories in a grief way too. Do you have any desire? Well, first, do you picture anybody when you write your characters? And then the second part of that is, because you've kind of shared these themes, do you picture yourself writing a comedy? Or, when I think of Jack Lemmon and the grumpy old men, and is there any element of that in maybe a third or fourth book?
Interesting. I don't what I picture for the characters are usually maybe like they have different features of many different people I've known, or even celebrities or something. I know Mrs. Crowley from A Little Hope. I definitely pictured a woman I used to teach with in one of my very first jobs. So I kind of pictured her kind of stature and the way she just kind of walked into a room and just kind of commanded a room that way. But I don't think I think they almost become these real people in my head that I just can see, that like a Chuck type person. I know what he looks like, but I wouldn't be able to compare him to. I'd have a hard time casting it. And I think that must be hard as a writer when your work gets adapted too, because if they choose somebody that wasn't the way you envision them to be. But yeah, no, I'm trying to think of any of these. No, I can't tell you that any of these are like people that they're in my head, I guess, which is really weird. And as far as comedy goes, I do like to have comic relief in my writing. And I mean, I'm always looking at the light side and kind of making humor of different things, but I don't think I have the chops to be a comic writer. I don't think I have the kind of wisdom that you need that way. I don't
like
think
even the
that's
subtle rom-com, like.
Yeah, I mean, I would try anything, but it's just so hard because you only get, there's only so much you can do. And then people start talking about your brand, which is different that way. Like I would even like to write some nonfiction as well, but you only get so many hours in a day. So it's hard to just try to experiment with so many things. And plus I have my teaching and my kids and my wife and things like that as well.
Well, you just mentioned branding. That's all I meant was in general. I mean, I guess we do see so much typecasting with authors, right?
Yeah.
You've got your Colleen Hoovers and so on, and Emily Henrys, and then you've written, kind of two very not similar, but similar in concept, right? The multiple characters that come together. So I didn't know if that's a thing. Did you want to brand yourself in that light?
No, I don't know if I would brand myself. I think I would just say, like you said about feel good, and I would say definitely feel good and feel deep. Maybe those would be my two things there. But yeah, I don't know if I'd be good at like the rom-com. I would love to write like a holiday themed kind of
Oh.
story too. So that's, I mean, I'm a big lover of like Hallmark movies and things like that. And once in a while I see like a Goodreads review that'll say, yeah, this felt like and they'll say it in a disparaging way, this felt like a Hallmark movie. And I'm like, Hallmark movies are not nearly as depressing as some of the parts of my book are.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I enjoy that kind of stuff. Thanks.
So along those lines, we're wondering, are you able to share anything about what you're working on next, or maybe not? It's okay if not, but
No,
you're able to share.
absolutely. I do. I don't know when we're going to announce it, but I do have another book coming out in summer 2024. And that is kind of it takes place in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where I live. And that is about a guy who has had his family restaurant for a lot of years, and he gets this, and he's just tired and exhausted, and he hasn't really lived too well. And he gets this big offer to sell out to like one of the restaurant corporations in the area. And he has to make a decision if he wants to. And he just really feels close to his cast and crew, and just doesn't know if he should sell that, because that's his found family. There's a lot of found family stuff in there. So if he should make the decision to sell, or if he should just kind of keep on going on. So yeah, that's, I don't know what the title is going to be yet. The rough title is The Same Bright Stars. I'm not sure if it's still going to be that. I really like that title, so fingers crossed with that. But yeah, that's going to be from Scribner too, so that's really exciting.
That is so exciting. I love it. And everybody said, yes, a holiday book, definitely a holiday book. So maybe, maybe next.
I get so excited when I see like the holiday books on Instagram and stuff. I get so excited, but then I do feel like that January feeling when all of a sudden the holiday books are there and people are like, all right, get those out of here. So I don't know if I would be able to deal with that part of it, about how quick and seasonal it is.
Well, the summertime's different, especially from this book. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, a lot of different seasons here. Well, and I have you try not to get stuck in kind of a holding pattern. You don't want to be like, I mean, it worked for Sue Graft in the M is for Murder, or the different letters, but I do have a fall cover and a winter cover. So I do think I need the spring and a summer cover at some point.
Oh, yes, I love that. Well, before we let you go, are you able to share any book recommendations or books that you've loved? And I feel like, I know I'm putting you on the spot. Whenever somebody's like, what books have you loved? I'm like, I don't know. It just feels paralyzing sometimes, but if you have a few favorites.
No, I just actually finished Signal Fires by Danny Shapiro, and I thought that was really, really good. And it's funny, a lot of people have said that this book reminds them in some ways, I guess with like The Old Man and things like that. Of A Quiet Life, but I really like that one. I love Stuart Onam's writing, so like Last Night at the Lobster, that's one of my favorites. That's a really short little novella, and it's probably about 15 years old by now, but that's has anybody read that one? I absolutely love that one. And I just read this one. I have it right here because I'm working on a review for Scribner. It's called This Is Coming Out Soon. I'm not sure when, but it's an older book. They're re-releasing it from Scribner. It's called The Hopkins Manuscript, and it's kind of like literary and sci-fi at the same time. And I generally don't like sci-fi fantasy stuff, but this was pretty interesting, and it kind of, my chest was palpitating for like the last 150 pages. So it's pretty neat. So I think that New York Times just did a review about it this weekend. He's the same one that wrote A Fortnight in September. It was a really neat, like old style, like family going to the beach in England. So they're re-releasing some of his stuff, but I just finished that actually. And this is the fastest I take so long to read a book, and this one I read in like a day and a half. So that's my ad for it.
And the first one you mentioned, you said it was The Lobster.
Last Night at the Lobster.
Okay.
Yeah, by Stuart Onan.
Okay.
That's that's like a novella, so it's really quick. I mean, you all probably could read it in like 10 minutes. It would take me 2 weeks to read it or something.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Signal Fires, because I read Signal Fires. It was the book immediately after I read A Quiet Life, and I was like, oh my goodness, it evoked the same feelings within me, and I loved both of them. So
that's funny. Yeah, so they're good winter books, I guess. And I've heard a couple of recommendations. Dinosaurs by Lydia Millette or something.
Oh,
You seen that one? It's a
I've
new
seen it.
one.
I think Melody might have read it here, but yeah, okay.
I've
Kind
heard a
of
lot of
reading.
people read. I don't know. I haven't, and I'm looking forward to reading it, but I can't. I'm not
Can't.
endorsing it because I haven't. Oh yeah, so somebody just said that.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that's really good, and I loved. Did anybody read? What's it called? Hurricane Girl by Marcy. I just read that over the summer. That was really crazy and really good. It was
Yes, by Marcy Dramansky.
by
right?
Marcy Domansky. Yeah,
It was
thanks.
awesome.
Yeah, that was really just absurd and interesting, and you just never knew where that was going to go. And I like that. I like not being able to guess. Yeah, the Lobster Book is only 4 hours on audio. Yeah, it's a quick one.
Nice. Yes. Well, if you have your books ready, we'll take a quick picture and then we will. Let's see if
Awesome.
I can. Ivana, would you be the technology girl?
I do, but I have 2 screens today of, we have so many readers with us. Lyndon, do you have any ideas about how to get everybody in one shot? I know you're the picture person sometimes too. I can just take 2.
Yeah, we might have to, hold on. Oh. If you go full screen, can you fit more in?
I have to slide over to my next.
Yeah, I do too.
I think if you're the host, you might be able to, you might have a setting where you can put more people on the
Oh boy.
on the screen, but because I looked on my features and I can't do it as a guest, but I think if you're the host, you might be able to do that.
I
That
think
feels-
under view in the top right, if you click gallery, maybe it shows them.
Yeah, we're in gallery, but the problem is
okay.
we have 2 full pages because we've got
Ah,
like
Yeah, that's
almost 50 people on. So I think we might just need to do like a 2 photo situation.
All right,
That's
2,
okay.
2. You won't know which one you're in, so you just
Just keep smiling.
okay. Give me just 1 second here to hold up my book too.
Now, should I hold up my book to or just wait?
Yeah.
Okay, control. Oh my God. Okay, so the first one's coming. Okay, ready? Cheese. Okay, that was 1. Now for the
Okay.
next one. So you may as well just hold up your book one more time.
Yep.
Control, shift, shoot. Thanks for your patience. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got them all.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Ethan, so much for your time and your words. And we just wish you all the best. And we're just also thankful that you were willing to spend your time with us tonight.
Well, thank you all. It was great talking with all of you, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Kelly and Ivana. It's a great crowd. I could do this all night.
Loved it, and we're gonna keep looking for all your other, good things to come.
Thanks. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Everybody for coming. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.